You're all set.
Thank you, Beth. So my name is Sherri Roberson. I'm the Assistant Town Collector in the town of Munson.
And I'm Jenkins. I'm the town collector for the town of Munson.
So we're going over the office operations and best practices, which are in most cases very self-explanatory for your basics, your customer service, and pretty routine things, but it's important to reiterate a lot of the different slides that we have and just go over having a consistent procedure on things. So that's what we'll get started with doing. Beth, are you able to change to the next slide?
Yep.
Thank you. So this one seems very basic as far as being pleasant at the window or on the phone, trying to make people laugh or just leave your window overall with a smile on their face. If you're on the phone, it's amazing how someone can hear whether you're smiling or not. So it's very important when you're on the phone to make it clear, or even if it's a frustrating call, try to make yourself smile so that they can feel like you're listening to them and that you're truly addressing the concern that they may have. I think it's very difficult when someone comes to your window and they are frustrated, their taxes went up, or they don't understand why they have 2 bills in one envelope. And those are the things that we're here to educate them. So it's very important to be as friendly as possible and just really make sure that they understand and you're pleasant with them.
Next slide, Beth, please. Depending on what your responsibilities are in the office, opening and closing routine should be the same time each day. I'm not sure what your hours are for operation in the town of Munson are public hours. Interest is being charged depends on how you do it in your individual offices. The postmark, the number of days late, and the amount charged. With our lockbox, we always send out 2 days because our, as you know, lockbox large files and they are processed. So we do give a leeway, posting lockbox payments to at least a week out. Again, with mail, if mail comes in very large, and the same. We look at the postmark, we see how long it takes to be mailed. Hasn't been, so we're very careful how we
I hate to interrupt you, but your audio is really bad.
okay. You want me to turn it up? Can you hear me better?
Maybe you should go to Sherri's computer.
Well, again, I'll go to Sherri's. We'll be here. I'll just put my chair over. I'll be over there. Beth, can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So I'll go back to the beginning, start over so we can, again, depending on what your responsibilities are in the office, opening and closing routine should be the same each day. In our particular building, we're open 8 to 12 and 1 to 4. So just be aware of what the consistency of your hours are. Now, getting down to the next portion of this, when will interest be charged on overdue accounts? Do you accept postmark, number of days out? We have lockbox here, and what we do, because we have a large volume of lockbox payments that come in from our vendor, which is Lighthouse. So we extend out our lockbox payments for like a week before we start rendering an interest charge. We watch the mail as well. And if the mail is coming in large quantities, and or if the post office has some delay, we verify the mail, giving them a couple of days so we don't charge them interest. If someone comes to our window on a due date or a past due date, we will charge an interest calculation because they've had all these opportunities to use the lockbox, online payments, or mail. When you're issuing your bills, you should control the due dates in a consistent manner. We have several different categories of collection. Real estate and personal property are requirements by law, the due dates, but we also bill out water, sewer, we also bill out trash collection, and we also bill out motor vehicle excise. So that we don't hit our taxpayers with everything all at once, we try to remain consistent where we will bill out our motor vehicle excise toward the end or middle of February. Our water sewer really runs tandem mostly with the real estate and personal property bills. On our motor vehicle excise, there are several commitments a year, and the largest being usually around February. With our trash bills, we bill them out, bill them semi-annually, and we bill them in May and we bill them in November. Now, if we issue demand notices or warrants, we try to stay consistent with the number of days. Some people like to be very, very frugal and make it happen 2 or 3 days after due date. I will give a number of days reprieve before I send out demand notices. It's also important to keep your taxpayers informed as to when bills are due. We utilize our town's website. We put notices on the front of the page of the web page, both the collector as well as the town. We also have a public notice board that we can put notices in. And I have in the past used the local newspapers. They have been very good about putting small articles in for us. Moving down further, when you do have a mailing, make sure that your proof of mailing with each bill, the original copy should be notarized and filed. Usually the original copy goes to the town clerk's office, and we also copy. These proof of mailings are very important. If our Board of Assessors office have to go to the appellate tax court, we have to provide a document showing the original mailing. Partial payments are accepted in our office based on your policy. There is a guideline that you can use as a 10% rule, but we usually analyze the account itself, and knowing that our collection index is rather exceptional, I'd like to say, we give like a 6-month period where we figure out over a 6-month period percentage of payments so that that person is not paying as much in interest and also gets that paid off before the next billing cycle goes out. Refund policies are consistent in our office as well. We normally do not do a refund on real estate until after the 4th quarter tax bills are due and demand notices have gone out. The refunds are done certainly to the moving forward, we're going into training of office personnel. We need the next slide, Beth.
So on that training aspect, it goes hand in hand with this. Make sure that all of your staff are on the same page, that one of your customers doesn't come in and say, well, Dot did this for me, or Sherri did this for me. It's very important to stay consistent, whatever procedures you choose to make in your office. As far as posting guidelines for current and delinquent and overpayments, make sure you're on the same page as far as the deadlines, just like with the consistency in the office, interest payments of when to accept. Make sure that you know you're accepting 2 days past the due date, no interest, and that you're following through and posting that accurate information along with the procedure you're choosing to follow. As far as the procedures to look up or research when you don't have a bill number, we keep it pretty consistent. We usually go by address. That seems to be the most accurate. If for some reason have numerous properties, last name is the best option in that case. Explaining and calculating interest on all taxes, being aware of the different interest rates, that is very important. It's one of the top questions people ask is, what's the interest that I'm paying on this? And you need to be able to not only tell them the rate, but to actually do the formula and calculate it out. You cannot always rely on the actual computer to be up and running and calculate it for you. So it is best practice to be able to do that manually. Also to explain the calculations, not just with a formula to them, because you might understand the formula and you know how to get to that number, but it's very important to explain that, explain the penalties and what type of bill it may be, because each bill has a different rate as far as utilities, real estate, or motor vehicle versus separate as well. Okay, do we have the next slide, please? So for cash control and balancing, keeping it consistent, still following those strict guidelines. You want to be balancing and posting to your receipts and bank deposit daily. We do regularly check our bank account. We're making sure our deposits have hit, that we are in balance. Procedures for balance posted payments and receipts when they don't match. We have a very good system as to making sure that we are constantly in balance. We personally work off of Vadar. That has been great as far as how we balance daily. With our bank account, we also keep an Excel sheet. So we keep track of all the deposits we have done that week. We can say, okay, up through Wednesday, we are in balance with the bank account. We know we're good to go. Doing regular checks is very important because it keeps you on track so that a week, 2 weeks down the road, you're not questioning something. You already know you were in balance up to that date. So I do highly recommend having some sort of Excel or some way to track the batches and deposits that you're making so that it's easier to make sure that you are in balance. Password protected screens, very important for each person in your office. It's not advised to share passwords. I understand there are some circumstances where you may have to do so, but ideally you'd like to have each person with their own password. That is the same for operating a cash drawer. You want separate tills for each person in your office. I know that this is not possible in every situation, but you should be doing regular checks. If one person is running it, then have the other person count it. You also want to consider starting your year-end balancing maybe a month or two early, May, maybe June. That way, if there's any issues, you can catch them ahead of time before it's crunch time. Also, balancing with your deputy collector regularly. If you can do it twice a year, that would be best, but making sure that you are regularly doing that and you're both in balance. As far as late payments, you want to make sure that they're date stamped. This is something that we don't do anymore. I ran into this a few years back. I was doing that regularly with marking it down. I found it was a little tedious, but it also does keep track of anything that is past due. It's some sort of proof, depending on the volume of payments you're accepting, and you may want to not do this, but just a thought. As far as return mail, we try to keep track of any return mail coming in, whether it's something that's being supposed to be forwarded, or it's a new owner, or even just an address change that's made. We do keep track by making sure every month when we receive our report from the assessor's office, we go through and we are changing it in the utility and the real estate end so that we're able to have the up-to-date mailing on everyone. The time where that becomes an issue is our biggest mailing typically. Actual billing is an issue. First motor vehicle is an issue. These are things where I do keep the envelopes when they're returned. We forward them out as much as we can, but if that customer comes in and they're wondering why they didn't get it, I've always looked back at the envelope and been able to pull it. This is why you haven't changed your address or whatever it may be. I know we're not required to keep those envelopes anymore. That's something I keep for a short period of time and then move forward. Go with the next slide.
Our next slide is for abatements, exemptions, refunds. What we do in our positions here in the town of Munson, we do have our Board of Assessors office abate as soon as we can. For example, if someone comes to our window and said, I have gotten rid of my vehicle, we ask them to step next to the next window, which is our Board of Assessors. And at that point, they can apply to the Board of Assessors for an abatement. To alleviate us taking a full payment, they will mark the bill with the adjusted amount for taxes. It will step back to our window and we will take the next tax, the amount that would be due after abatement. That's working very well. And then we do get weekly reports from the assessor's office on abatement. The Board of Assessors can qualify unpaid tax. They can qualify to not abate, but we call it settle the levy on motor vehicle excise bills over 3 years old. This is very, very important, especially our auditors are very pleased the way we process it. And we do not at the present time have anything older than 2018 motor vehicle excise on the books. What we do is we do keep these bills that are outstanding still with our deputy collector. So if these are marked at the registry of motor vehicles and they are trying to renew their license or registration, they are known to pay the bill first. So even though it's not necessarily on the levy, we still collect these, we call it our revenue accounting code, motor vehicle paid after abatement. This is proved to be very, very healthy for us because our books are clean and things are. We do process our refunds as soon as the abatements are normally granted. We do give back refunds on payments that creates a credit. We also, on our real estate refunds, we do not do a refund on motor vehicle excise until after the demand notices go out after the 4th quarter, count a months or more. And this proves to be, we verify each refund before it's authorized for our accounting office, treasurer's office, and issue checks. Normally on refunds, if there usually is an 8% amount granted for anything that we are sending back, but unless the taxpayer requests that 8% interest amount, we do not normally process it. Again, it's based on the individual account. No motor vehicle excise refund should be less than $5, and that is the minimum abatement allowed. Although we do refund anything $1 and over, just to keep it clean. Anything under $1, we credit this as a paid under $1, and it's an accounting entry. Most motor vehicle excise refunds, if they go to a appellate tax court, could be at a rate of 6%, and that's by order of. Next slide, please.
Thank you. Municipal liens, you want to make sure that you're really making sure that they're accurate, careful when processing them. They are legal documents, and unfortunately, if there's any errors, that's a very costly mistake for us. In our office, I process municipal liens. We try to keep it consistent as far as having one person do them. Also, if you're going to be the one processing them, ideally you'd like someone else to be checking them. If for some reason you're not able to have someone else check them, I do recommend putting them aside, checking them the following day. That way you have a fresh slate. Looking at them, you won't miss anything after having just processed them. I do them weekly at minimum. It's really dependent on your billing. So with billing out for water and sewer on our end, I'm mindful of those dates because they will be generated in the computer and you want all billing to show on that municipal certificate if possible. So I'll make sure that I'll wait that day or two as long as it's within the 10 business days. And I will wait till that water sewer charge is on there and then I will process it. When you're reviewing these, you want to make sure that it is not in tax title. If it is, you should be noting that. You really want to make sure to highlight any notations, any past due balances. I actually highlight the trash, any past due water and sewer, or if it's in tax title, it tends to bring attention to it because an attorney will look at that. And if it is not highlighted, there's a possibility for them to miss something. So we do make sure we put as much information as possible. We highlight any notations that are needed, and then we make sure to get an issue of that out. We keep them on hand, file them. We're also able to attach any copies. And if it's something that's in tax title, we always give a copy to our treasurer.
Now, we do subsequent tax title and tax title here in the office. We just recently advertised for 2020, and we're preparing to advertise again for tax title April. This is important, again, because you only have 2 years from the time of assessment to make sure you secure a lien and a tax title. After the mailing of a demand bill, the assessed owner's failure to, well, if it's not mailed to the assessed owner, it could invalidate the taking, which means that you're doing a legal ad in the newspaper and you're preparing an instrument of taking. All of these costs would be null and void if it's not accurate. Again, in doing anything relevant to delinquencies, we're required by the bankruptcy courts to file proofs of claim as possible on real estate because they are secured, and also motor vehicle are general priority. Those are important. Make sure you don't miss those as they come in. Be careful not to try to collect pre-petition taxes, flags accounts, demands, and so forth that can't be sent on something that's been pre-petitioned. Again, removing motor vehicle markings from renewal can be reinstated with a court's permission after. Real estate taxes and 3 years of motor vehicle excise taxes are not discharged unless court permission is granted. Delinquent utility services are 1 day after due date if properly secured or adopted. In the town of Munson, we lien our water, sewer, and also trash on our actual real estate bills. Half of it goes on the 3rd quarter of our actual real estate bill and the 4th quarter other part. So that works out very well. We found this to be quite successful, and our liens are better, a much better process. Years ago, when we first started collecting water, sewer, literally sent shut-off notices and sent our water sewer people out to connect water, which turned to be a bigger problem because at that point, then the Board of Health steps in because they don't have proper water for usage and consumption. So again, the lien process, clean, good, and is acceptable by law.
Denial of permits and with funds. This is something, as far as denying for permits, that's something we will do. Withholding funds isn't something we really practice in our town any longer, but it is something you have as an option to do so. So Chapter 40, Section 57 allows denial of application for or revocation or suspension of any local licenses for any delinquent taxes, fees, municipal charges, etc., if it's accepted in your bylaw. So building permits, if the first thing we do is check the taxes on it. If there's any unpaid taxes, we put a notation. We have the option to halt the permit entirely. Usually I'll put a notation start, that way they are aware that they are past due and have the option to make payment. And once they've made payment, I will go in and approve it. If it's continued that they have not made any payments, I will then go ahead and just deny it. It's up to the building department to decide whether or not they want to move forward with that. Chapter 60, Section 93. Let me just this from my screen. Treasurer may, and if collector requests, shall withhold payment of money if applicable to any person, taxes, assessments, or other charges committed to the collector. That's completely up to whether you want to do that. If it's an agreement, we currently do not do that any longer, but it is an option to be done. You can change to the next slide.
I think
Now, this is something we put in here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just want to make sure that your office does not have hazards. You don't want cords all over the floor. You want to make sure that your office is as safe as possible so that you don't run into any issues as far as the public safety in general. So keeping your floors clean, no trip hazards, try to avoid that if you can.
Okay, yep. Hey, Beth, one more again, please. Data privacy. This is very important. There's a lot of confidential information on checks and banking information. You don't want to keep copies unless you must. You want to dispose securely as soon as possible when is needed. We here in the town of Munson are very fortunate. We have a local bank who takes all of our both deposit checks, and they themselves will take care of destroying them and getting off premise into a secure spot for anything that has to be destroyed. Excise bill licenses years ago used to have excise bills used to have the license information on there when they used to contain social security numbers. That has now been changed. So that you must be very careful with your receipts and how you store them and how you destroy them. We have not had a problem in the past, but wise to do this and make sure that anything that's stored is stored properly, secure, and not in anybody's area where they can actually get this data from information.
Media relations and what happens when the media calls. Every town should have a policy on this. You don't want to have to be thinking about what you need to do when something big happens. For us personally, we refer anything out to the town administrator. So it is important, make sure you know what your town's policy is, that you refer them to the appropriate parties.
And this slide here is interesting for the town of Munson. Your town probably already has a plan in place, but I can tell you from personal experience, in June of 2011, the town of Munson was hit with a tremendous tornado, something that has been unheard of in this section of New York. Our town office building, the roof was literally ripped off from its foundation. And what we didn't know at the time is what we should do. We're very fortunate that the town's IT people, our IT consultants, came in, went to the top floor of our building, literally covered our server, removed it, and brought it back off premise to their office in Long Meadow. We were able to be fully functional within 3 days after the tornado at a different site because our building was destroyed. We had payroll out in 3 days. And we were collecting payments for bills the following day. It's not something you want to really wish would happen, but we learned through this experience that you have to have a plan in place. For example, if your computer dies, what do? How do you print bills with in-house mailing and billing? What happens if your network goes down? In this case, we're very fortunate to have a very good person to know to do something quickly to take care of the issue. If you don't have a plan in place, I would hope that you can ask any of your town leaders to make sure there is one, because we've learned through our experiences that it can be very, very devastating if you don't have a plan. Munson now is in a brand new building. We've been building now since 2014. Everything is modern, up to date. Very pleased with our surroundings, but you just never know what Mother Nature could do. At this point, we're coming to the close of our presentation, and I'm not sure, Beth, how you'd like to do this, but Sherri and I would love to take any questions and answers anybody might have, any comments you want to make, how you might do something, or if you have further questions that we haven't addressed, we're here to help you. Let us know.
Thank you for the presentation. We'd love to get some questions. It takes them a little while usually. I had a question about, do you have a plan in case there's like a cyber attack on your network?
Well, we have a verbal, I guess we can say we have a verbal plan. We don't have something in writing at this point. We have had a change in our leadership in the town. We have a new town administrator. We have a new board of selectmen. We have soon to be new treasurer collector. So these are things that we got to get our hands wrapped around again. We are aware of what we've experienced, but to be honest with you, we do not have a written policy right now.
You have something in the chat. What do you mean by balancing with the deputy collector?
In our town, we use Jeffrey and Jeffrey. They're out of Ware. They've been a deputy collector for the town of Munson probably over 40 years. It's good to make sure that you balance with your deputy periodically to make sure that say, for example, something gets marked or something's been referred to them, and in that period of 2 or 3 days, that person paid it. And if the deputy is not aware of that being either abated or paid, then they're still pursuing the first warrant, second warrant, and then marking. So that's a good policy to keep in place. Verify with your deputy a couple of times a year. Make sure that your balances and their balances are correct.
Do you see the chats or do you want me to read them?
I can see this one asking if we keep any return mail, excise, real estate bills. Let me just see. I couldn't read all of that.
That's the law. If
So-
so, what?
The return mail we used to be required to keep. I believe it was maybe 4 years ago at one of the Cape conferences we went to. They went over that and said that we were not required to keep them any longer. The only reason I hold on to, and not for a long time, but I hold on to them within the first few weeks of sending out a mailing. And I do this because that's when you're going to get the most people coming in asking you why they didn't receive their bill. Motor vehicle, I'll do that with because people who have moved, in most cases, they have not changed their address through the registry. And a lot of people will stop in, say, I think I might have a bill, I didn't receive anything, and I can pull the copy because usually it won't say any forwarding address for motor vehicle because that's one of those ones where not many people change their address and you get a slew of them back. So I will go through them and then that way I have the bill on hand. I notify them that they need to change their address through the registry and then what to do moving forward. So that's just something I personally do. I find it convenient and then I get rid of them after that mailing is finished and the bills have been, the due date has passed, excuse me.
One thing we also do with our mail, and we have an address requested change on our return on our envelopes that are mailed out. So we have an account with the local post office, put funds into it, and they will give us, if they can, if the forwarding is in place, they will give us up-to-date, hopefully correct mailing. So we have something to work with. That might not always be accurate, but we're fortunate to get some out in the mail if they come back. It's a good thing to have. It's been something that we've used for quite some time. And it's address requested on your envelope that gets mailed out. Both we do it and also our mailer, our actual vendor that we use for our mailing, they also do that same notation.
This is related. This morning, they had the assessor's office on and they said if there's a property tax and you get something that someone moved, do you go over to the assessor's office that they're gonna need a change of address to, or?
We don't give those to the assessors. They get all their address changes through the deeds that come in. One thing we do with our assessors, which is a very good practice, they give us on a monthly basis a report of any new address and or name changes. Then what Sherri and I will do, we will change this in some of our programs. For our trash program, we can make that change. Water sewer department administrative assistant makes those changes for mailing and or names. And this is to be very, very good, especially if you're between cycles and billing and we don't have that updated information.
So it's more they give it to you versus the other way around. Anybody else have questions? I think we have Zoom fatigue today.
I will say that if you have any questions, what, you have any questions?
Excise tax bills if you get the new address. If we have a new address, we will absolutely forward out as many times as we can. If it's something that comes back from the post office to forwarding, they recently moved, we get out as many of those as we can until we no longer can. If they contact us and ask for a copy of the bill, we'll send it to them or hold it for them to come pick up if they realize they didn't change their mailing as well.
Another good thing when you get excise bills back and you're not sure of the correct mailing, on occasion we will call our deputy collector who has access to the Registry of Motor Vehicles database, and they have given us updated mailing addresses as well. So that's also a point to find.
Another question, do you immediately return checks to attorney? Jane? You want to elaborate on?
In a case like this and that's where the timing of a municipal lien certificate is so important. We try here Sherri and I try very hard to get all of our, for example, our files that come in from our tax services immediately posted. So when we're doing municipal lien certificate part as possible. Now, for some reason, if an attorney does a duplicate payment, what we do, we do not send it back to the attorney. We notify the attorney, but normally you should go back to the seller because their money's coming out of closing. It does depend on how the attorney's done the closing costs and how they do the estimates and the when they prorate it. But usually, again, on the quarterly basis, don't return the checks to the attorney unless we know for some reason it should go back to them because there was an error on there.
Couple more minutes, anybody?
While we're waiting, and both Sherri and I we teach classes at the university as well, at University of Mass. It's important that if you ever have questions, we will, if you want to give our office a call, you can check our emails online. We have always felt that we had questions answered when we were first coming into the profession, and it's the way we pay back. And we always find each day we work, we find something that we didn't know before. So you can be in a profession. I've been in it 35 years, and Sherri's been in it close to 8, take a few years. So it's important that you reach out to the association, go onto our listserv. The MCTA listserv is a marvelous, wonderful resource for getting questions and answers, anything you might run into.
I see another question asking if we put the care of on our bills and if the post office will forward them. This is a tough one because we have to work with the assessor's office on this and come to agreement as far as getting the bills out and making sure that they reach the taxpayer, but also following the guidelines that the assessors have to follow as well. So we will change the address and make the notation and do a balance statement. We can't technically change that address on that official bill. It's a work in progress right now. We do have a new assessor, and we are working on finding an alternative as far as getting those bills out, because we do tend to get a lot of returned, where what the office has done for us this year is print out labels of all the new owners, and we put the labels on the return bills coming back, which it's quite tedious, but we want to make sure that they're getting their bill. So the post office has not returned any of the labeled ones that we have mailed back out. We have gotten a few back of the care ofs that we have sent, but the labels that the assessor's office have provided us with the newer owner, we have not had an issue with yet.
We also make sure that when we do get these new owner names, that we go into our system, especially on real estate and personal property, and we do an edit, so we have it internally. So after the fourth quarter billing and bills haven't reached the right people, we have the capability of sending out demand notices, hopefully to the correct owner, and that does help. So make sure that when you're making these changes, either with labels or whatever process you are using, make sure you go into your computer system and add the subsequent owner someplace in the mailing. The post office by right should read bottom up and not top down. And if there is a line of care of line or something put in, they should read the state, the address, and the owner's name, third owner's name, or the one in the third line should be what they're mailing to. But we have found our post office on occasions will still forward off to owner's first name, first line.
I see another question. What do you do with payments that come in before actuals are billed that would credit ahead or prepay? So Typically, the only payments that we really get, because anyone who asks, we don't have those figures, the official bills yet, but we get them from attorneys. And it's clearly noted it's for the Q3. I will put them aside if they are not too far in advance. I will put them aside and we will post them when they're available to post in our software system. You have to do what's comfortable for you. That's something that seems to work with us. The attorneys appreciate it because they're just trying to get the payments over to us. Now, you really shouldn't have prepayments, but once it's available for us to apply those payments, we will do so. And usually it's no more than a week ahead of time.
We have 3 more minutes and then we'll turn it off. Anybody else? Last word of advice from either of you or both of you?
Well, anyway, welcome to collection land and how we do office practices, both for the treasurer and collector. Always maintain a good attitude. Remember, you're just the messenger. You're trying to do your job based on the information that you have available, and enjoy your jobs. Municipal government is an interesting animal unto its own, but it's something that's enjoyable, and you can make a wonderful career of it.
I see a couple more questions. Did you want to answer those?
So I see a question, do you post the payment prior to January 1st if the software is now displaying Q3 and Q4 installments, or wait until January 1st? So if it's been committed to us, we can post it. And so we will do that prior to the 1st, as long as it's available in our software system and they've been committed to us.
There's one more underneath.
I see, what is your policy for disclosing verbal tax information to non-homeowners, attorneys, tax agencies? We do not provide verbal. This is something that I had previously worked for another town. I always provided verbals. And then I realized I wasn't getting in municipal lien certificates, and they would quote me on the verbal I gave them. Then when I came to Munson and worked with that, she said, we do not provide verbal. And that was hard, but at the same time, if you're firm and you don't budge and you tell them you must request municipal lien certificate for any sales or refinances, they will send it in. And that way it's on paper, it's been documented. They can't say, well, you told me this is how much it was. You have proof there. So we do require them to get a municipal lien certificate. We have several ways for them to request one, and they know what to expect when they call us. So we really don't get that much pushback with it.
Great advice.
So I see another question for what do you do for tax services that call for verbals? We require a municipal lien certificate. There are some circumstances where they're not refinancing. It's just they realize that they've missed a payment, or there's been water, sewer, or trash that's been leaned onto the property. In those cases where we can see that's clear, it's not for the sale or refinance, we will provide the verbal to them. But there are occasions where they do call us as well, and we require the municipal lien certificate.
Usually it's the case where we do ask for a lien certificate if that particular taxpayer has delinquent prior taxes. Because of the length of the amount of information that we have to provide, we do that. We do say to them, be it CoLogic or Wells Fargo or Loretta, upon receipt of your request for a lien certificate, we will be glad to provide you this written document and provide you information after we received the request.
So I see the comment of CoreLogic is constantly calling and will want several over the phone. I understand they do constantly call. If they want more than two, and I say two in the sense of depending on how busy you are, it takes time. You most of the time have to reiterate what you're saying several times. I ask them to fax it. If it's just to be up to date on bills that, you know, we sent them over a file and they're questioning some liens, whatever it may be, I want it faxed over because we don't have the time to sit on the phone. We can do it much faster by looking them up when we get a moment to do so and faxing it back. But I will say, as far as the CoreLogic flooding your phone lines, they are going to do that no matter what. But I'll tell you, when you make it clear to them that they must request a municipal lien certificate, or that if it's multiple requests that they have to fax it, it's like you're training them to do what you need them to do for your office. So then your phone frees up a little bit. You might get a few more faxes coming in. You might get a lot more municipal lien certificate requests, but it avoids that phone time, which in most cases is a lengthy conversation because you are reiterating a lot of information.
It does bring up something that we've done in town of Munson for a number of years. When you get requests from your tax services, be it CoreLogic, Loretta, or Wells Fargo, this information is our data, is Munson's data. So when they request these files for us to send out information for billing and quarterly billing that we do, I charge a fee. The fee is determined based on a number of things, and I charge a certain fee per file. For example, each one of the tax services don't blink an eye. They will send in a request for $250. We in turn will process and prepare the file, mailing back for them to them. And it worked very well. We found this to be successful. And again, it's your data, it's the town's data, and they are also passing on costs to their users as well. So it's something we've done, and they have not balked at it. Our auditors don't have a problem with it, and it does bring in revenue to the town.
Excellent job.
The multiple ways to request municipal lien certificate. So usually by mail with a return envelope. They can drop it off in person, or we have it available online through the Unibank system. So if they go onto our website, just like if they were making a payment for a bill, they're able to pay for a municipal lien on there, send the request, and we get an emailed copy of it. Now, you don't get an envelope with that, so that's up to you if you want to decide if you're going to just mail it to them or tell them they need to send one to you in the mail, but you'll get the request done since you have the funds for it at that point. It's some people just ask that you fax or email a copy when it's complete, because those are the people who are rushing saying, we have a closing today, but we have 10 business days to complete it. So they know that there's going to be lag time, so they'll just send it right over. But the online is convenient for them when they're in a rush, but you want to make sure when you get those notifications through your emails, you're printing them out right away, because the same applies. You only have the 10 business days to complete it, depending on the size of your community. But that one people do have utilized quite often. We have one attorney who just dropped off a stack of envelopes, and she sends in her requests through the Unipay, and we just pop them out as we get them. You want to
That's a great question, Rand. Thank you for asking it. If you're new to the position, the one thing I will ask you to do is, number one, reach out to our association. Reach out, ask questions on the MCTA. Reach out to any of our collector treasurers in the area. Glad to answer any of your questions. Make sure you go to staff school. Make sure you're asked and go to our UMass and all the training that we have, our spring conferences, our fall conferences. They're not Zoom meetings, but actual in-person. These are important to have this be part of what you're learning as a collector. Over the years, I've made wonderful professional relationships with my fellow treasurers and collectors because we learn from each other. And there's not a time that I haven't gone to a meeting or a conference where I haven't learned something or I've been able to provide information to other people so they can. So stay closely associated with our state association.
I would like to, I guess, make a comment on that as well. If you're completely new to the position, I always recommend be consistent. Make sure that everything you do is consistent from the beginning and follow through with it. It is so easy for someone to come in and say, so-and-so always used to waive the demand for me or whatever it may be, but follow the procedures that are there for you and be consistent with it because it will bite you if you're not. And I have been in a position previously where the person who collected prior to me, you know, they see the cop come in, oh, I'm going to waive it for him. And you really can't. If it's over $15, which in most cases the demand is with the interest, you start to get yourself in trouble. So stick to the rules, follow them, and be consistent with it.
Mass General Law is your Bible.
Yeah.
You stay with Mass General Law, and I have found over the last 35 years, that's kept me with a reputation of firm, fair, but accurate. And that will keep you in the best standings for you.
I'm going to chime in from the MCTA office. Welcome aboard. One of the things, we're starting a mentorship program. So if you can email me, I'll give you my email directly and sign up for the mentorship, because then you can talk with them or email them whenever you want. And in May, we have a new Treasurer and Collector Day, and it's in person, and it's a way to just learn the roles and responsibilities of that and meet other people who are either seasoned professionals or new like you. So I think those are the two things that are really important. The other thing I would say about the annual school, if you are like, sometimes people are hired as a treasure collector and their boss would say, just take a lot of different courses, just all the new things. My feeling is take one and stick with that and get the certification and then go to the next, because it's on track. And if it gets off of track, it may keep you from finishing your certification in the 3-year period. So since you're a collector, start in August, make sure you sign up when you can for that.
More questions? So if there are no other questions, thank you for giving us the time and listening. And if you have any questions and think of something later on, you can give us a call in the office, or you can send an email to us as well, and we'll make sure to respond to that.
Thank you, both of you, for such a great job. A lot of really great information, and look for them. They always answer stuff on our listserv. I know they're both very involved in the association. And I appreciate all of you being on board all day. And now you probably have 2 minutes to get your other work done. So have a great night. And some of you I may see next week. And I appreciate all of you doing this all online. It was a big feat, but I think it was very successful. I hope you enjoyed it.